Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Garnett, and I'm the president of the Institute for Student Achievement, and I want to thank you for joining us today to discuss evidence-based high school reform, which is the work of ISA. When you came in today, we invited you to use the Post-its, or if you had index cards, to write down a question that you may have. And we're going to collect those because today we are fortunate to have two school districts here represented on our panels, and these may be questions that you would like us to ask when we are having our discussion, and we'd be happy to utilize your input as we think about how to make certain that you leave today with information that's helpful. I want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about the Institute for Student Achievement. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, the Institute for Student Achievement has actually been in existence for 27 years. We started as an after-school initiative to support schools in Long Island, as we were founded by a family called the Leeds family. And we worked in after-school space supporting students and extending their learning, and then decided later on that we were having so much success that it was important for ISA to think about how it could really support students through academics, social emotional, all day long. So in 2000, we became a school reform and design organization, and ISA has been working across the United States with urban high schools. So we are here today to really focus on urban high schools and to really think about what are the things that are working out in the field, what is the research base that we're using to implement and do this work, and how can we learn from places where they are having success, and how do we take this information and spread it so that more schools and districts across this country can change the outcomes for underserved and underprepared youth. We continued our work with ISA, as you can see, in 2000, and in 2013, ISA became a division of the Educational Testing Service to help ETS extend its mission, which is to continue to also make certain that we're closing achievement gaps and that we are serving all young people with full systems of support across the United States. So we are pleased to be here, and we're pleased that you're joining us to have this conversation. Now, the one thing that keeps us all up at night is this ongoing conversation. Every day a new study comes out, studies about whether or not young people are ready for college, if they're taking remedial courses, if young people are ready for jobs. And I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but when we talk with business and industry, they often express concerns about the readiness of our youth for jobs and for careers, not only in terms of their academic preparation, which enabled them to do things like master their critical thinking skills and their communication skills, but they really feel that we as secondary schools are falling short of the workforce that they will need, and our workforce is changing. As we continue to evolve as a global community, the jobs of the future are jobs that don't exist right now, and we have an incredible opportunity as educators and community members and university personnel and funders and other activists to think about how do we shape the future for our young people, particularly as the diversity of this country continues to grow more and more diverse. Over 50% of our students in the United States are from culturally diverse backgrounds, and we know that there's also been a lot of conversation about the mismatch between the diversity of our students and the diversity of our educators, and a commitment to think through not only how do we increase the diversity of our educators, but how do we make certain that every educator is entering the field with high expectations and that they are culturally competent to work with all of the youth who are in their classrooms. So as we think about how to get public high school graduates ready for a future of their choosing, that means that we really need to hone in on what's working and what we know and work together to close those long-standing gaps. Now, one of the gaps, and there are many educators in this room, which is what is exciting, but one of the gaps that we constantly experience is boredom. And every year the Gallup organization does a survey of students, and this is the data from one of the Gallup student surveys showing the level of disengagement that young people began to experience beginning in 5th grade. That was the height. And then it begins to drop precipitously as students continue in our education system. That is why ISA is so committed to inquiry. We are an organization that is committed to inquiry-based learning. We are an organization that is committed to networks of urban professionals learning with and from each other, and we are committed to professional learning that is ongoing and consistent so that we can change this trajectory and that young people in our schools are not with their heads down on a desk, but they are truly actively engaging in their own learning. They are learning with each other, and they are learning and pushing the conversations in our classrooms so that they are authentic. So I want to tell you just a little bit about our model before we kick off and you get to hear from 2 school districts. The first thing I would say about our model is that if you look at the middle bar here, that we've worked with over 4,000 teachers and counselors and school leaders across the United States, and that we have impacted over 70,000 students in the United States. So as I said, we have some things that we have learned in doing this work, and one of the things I will say is that it's a journey. For all of us who have worked in schools and districts, particularly in urban schools and districts, there is no quick fix. It is not an off-the-shelf model. It is not a one-size-fits-all. And it's not if you do this today that tomorrow everything's going to change in terms of the outcomes for students. It is hard work. And we're going to talk about the hard work it takes in the academics as well as the social emotional side, as well as the kind of leadership and teacher support and counselor support that we believe is important in order for schools to really make a difference for young people. The other thing that's really important about us, as I said before, is that we have focused on urban education, and we have focused on students who are typically considered underprepared or underperforming. If our student population is about 95% students of color, our free and reduced lunch across our schools population is 75%. And the number of students who enter ISA schools who are behind in math and reading is about 66%. And that we also know that these are students who also were not proficient in 8th grade, and these are students who are struggling in reading and math. So ISA schools, when we begin, these are the kinds of data points that some would consider educational and environmental challenges, and we enter into those relationships with high expectations that with the support and collaboration and partnership with educators, that we can make certain that these young people are successful and that they are graduating ready for college and careers. So a couple things about us, for those of you who are new to our community, we only work with high schools. I think a lot of organizations try to do it all. We focus in on high schools. And this is very important to us because even as we know that early childhood is important and we're happy about the ongoing conversation about how to make certain that young children are also coming in better prepared, it's not too late at high school to really focus in on the needs of our youth. I just spent a couple of days in California at a conference focused on the science of learning and development. And one of the things that they talked about is that adolescence is a time when the brain actually has a new surge of activity and opportunity. There is greater brain development because our young people are in puberty. Now, as a mother of 4 high school girls, I know that adolescence can be an opportunity, and it also can be an opportunity for us to think about how do we harness that energy and that development so that when we are in our classroom environments and when we are helping these young people think about their futures and to learn in ways that are inspiring them to think about their futures, how do we harness that energy and remember that we can change where they started so that when they leave us, they're better prepared for their future. We also believe the school is a unit of change. Many of us in this room have worked at many levels of education, from national to the state offices to the district offices. And while those support systems are incredibly important and can be a partner or a barrier to what's happening in the school, we focus most of our energy in the school as the unit of change. And we also know that leadership is important. We do a lot of work to support the leaders who are working in our nation's most diverse and schools in our country. We really believe that principal leadership is critical. We believe in supporting and coaching and working with those principals, as well as focusing on the instructional needs of our teachers in our classrooms and our counselors. So as you think about the conversation today, I want you to think about what are you hearing about the needs of principals and how ISA can help principals in that leadership challenge. For those of you who have worked in these roles, you know how challenging it is to invest your heart and all of your time into helping the young people and your educators. It's exhausting, it's exciting, it's energizing, but sometimes it can also be a time when we forget to take care of ourselves because we're pouring so much into what we're doing. So we like to also be that person who is supporting that principal behind the scenes and those teachers behind the scenes, because it's a courageous, demanding profession. So we have taken our work, and it's based on 7 research-based principles. And we developed the research for ISA in partnership with Teachers College and Crest. And this afternoon, you're going to hear about some of the independent evaluation studies that have been done of our work. But as you look at this slide, you can see that ISA really focuses on 3 areas. The first one is college preparatory teaching and learning. Young people can't be prepared for college if we don't give them the opportunity to take classes that are preparing them for college. So when we look at high school schedules and we do not see opportunities for young people to take upper level math courses, to have access to rigorous coursework, or to complete the coursework required for a high school diploma or an advanced high school diploma, that is a concern. And we really focus on how do we take the classes in which young people are taking on their regular schedules and raise the level of inquiry and learning in those classrooms so that they are better prepared for a college setting. Our second area is around relationships. We all have heard relationships matter. You know, if young people know we care, then they will care about their learning. In ISA schools, this is one of our most important areas of focus. And it was very supportive for me to be in California with experts on brain development, including Dr. Pam Cantor and Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, to hear them talk about how strong relationships in schools can erase the adverse conditions that young people enter schools with. We are very much about dedicated teams of teachers and leaders. We are very much about also distributing counseling. Your counselors are not superheroes, right? They are often dragged into many, many other duties as assigned, and sometimes don't have the opportunity to actually do the kind of social, emotional, and college readiness counseling that they want to do. So in ISA, we believe that everyone in the school has to build those relationships and support our young people, and that everyone in the school is also responsible for the continuous improvement of our schools. When we begin working with schools, we want to not only come in and help you do a needs assessment, we also want to know, what do you think your needs are? What are the problems you think what do you think the problems are that you're having in your schools? We can't solve what we don't know. And together, if we could put these pieces together, which our research has shown will have a positive impact on young people, we can change what happens. So today, it's about the journey, right? It's about the journey of, what does it take to begin this work? How long does it take for this work to really have an impact on young people? And what are some of the personal and leadership and systems decisions that have helped some of our high schools that serve majority young people who are of color, who are from low-income communities, and are entering with many environmental conditions that are really could impact their education negatively if we weren't on it? How do we calculate and think about the journey that we all need to take? So I think that a couple of things that I would say is, again, being in California and being with hundreds of other people talking about brain development and also digging into adolescent brain development was very, very important. This is me standing with the principal of Bronxdale High School, which is one of the high schools that I'm going to just end my remarks by telling you a little bit about, because they've been on the journey with ISA the longest. But I think that also one of the things that we really had a chance to think about in California is, how do we make equity the purpose of schools and not an indicator, right? Equity is the purpose of schools and not just something we measure as an indicator. And that is something that in ISA schools we truly believe in because of who we are and who we work with, that equity is at the forefront of this work. So in our work today, we have a full day, a full agenda, and Bronxdale High School, which you just saw the principal, started with ISA in 2012. and we will hear from her students in a moment. We have a video of the students at Bronxdale. We will be hearing from Innovation High School in New Jersey, and we will also be hearing about the school district of Cleveland, the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and our partner there is Glenville High School. So I'm giving you an opportunity to hear from some perspectives of schools that have been with us longer, in the middle, and even when you just start. What are some of the questions and some of the considerations around urban high school reform that you need to be thinking about, and what have we learned along the way? So this is a video from Bronxdale High School, and I want you to hear what the students there have to say about their educational experiences.
Bronxdale is focused.
Bronxdale is collaboration.
Bronxdale is rigorous.
Because right now we're being timed, and so we can, learn to pick up our pace.
Bronxdale is participation.
Bronxdale is communication.
We are going into our third year. We're very excited. We now have grades 9, 10, and 11.
Bronxdale is college bound.
We are a close-knit community, so we're looking for kids who are going to be willing to work collaboratively. That's part of our tagline: communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. We want students to love learning. So the idea behind an inquiry-based school is to bring that curiosity to learning, because those skills are really important for the industries of today.
All right, so what do y'all think about that?
Bronxdale is culinary.
We make caramel muffins, banana bread, waffles, crepes.
We hope that they're having fun at the same time while they're working and cleaning and creating. Creating is important for us, for everyone to be creative.
We have a wonderful bunch of enthusiastic, energetic, and creative teachers. They come with connections. We've been able to reach out and develop partnerships with different community-based organizations, and each year we're adding more.
The students learn from each other. They ask each other the questions. Every class has a big idea, big question, big essential understanding that the students need to have.
I think that's really what inquiry is about, is going around the box, I call it, where students are trying to develop their own questions and develop their own understanding. It's asking students to do something they may have never been asked to do before and participate at a high level.
Natural selection.
It's making connections not only to what we're doing inside the classroom, but outside the classroom as well. So it's like the so what, it's answering why are we doing this and how's it going to benefit me beyond these classroom walls.
We want kids to leave here being able to educate themselves independently beyond school, to want to be interested in something and know how to find out more about it.
I'm excited about the future, and I can't wait till we start having graduating classes here.
So Bronxdale High School, as I said, started with ISA in 2012. Most of the entering students were performing at a level 1 or 2 when they entered the school. And it is a school now that exceeds the New York City graduation rate. It is a school now where students are scoring above their peers on the New York State regions. And it is a school in which the educators have worked hard to create this environment, and when regardless of where you started, if you were 1 or 2 in proficiency, that you are engaged in your own learning, that you have agency as a student, and that you know how to use accountable talk to work with your peers. And most importantly about Bronxdale is that they are doing a remarkable job of embedding the social emotional support that we know is so important into the teaching and learning process. It's not some separate class. In ISA schools, we use advisory in the way it was intended to be used. It's not a 15-minute every other week activity. It is something that actually has a curriculum. It is an opportunity for young people in high schools to talk about key issues that are important to them, and also to think about their own academic preparedness and to think about specific topics that will enable them to be better prepared to communicate in college and in their careers. So when we look at the work of what it took to get from Bronxdale's 2012 students at low levels of proficiency to where it is today, these elements of evidence-based reform are really important. Everyone's talking about evidence now, not only because we were talking about it before, but also because it's so highly featured within the requirements of ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act. And in ISA, Because of the fact that you'll be hearing about our 3 independent studies today, we are the only high school reform model that is approved by the U.S. Department of Education for use with state improvement grant funding, and we are on the What Works Clearinghouse because the research and the evidence of our work has been consistent and has been validated by independent studies. These are some of the positive impacts that you find in ISA schools. The first is that ISA students are more likely to move from grade to grade. I once worked in a school district where 25% of our students were retained from year to year. You will find in ISA schools, because of the network of support as well as the academic focus, that our students are moving from grade to grade. They're more likely to graduate in 4 years. They're less likely to drop out. And we know that dropout information is not only about the academic gaps, dropouts are also about not having connections, not feeling a sense of belonging in your school. And that is why we focus so much on the distributed counseling as well as the dedicated teams and teachers, all hugging those students along with the academic preparedness. And we also know that it's important that we think about college going. That is one of the outcomes for which we were founded. And our young people not only go to college, but they persist. And you can see here that this is some of the data on ISA students in terms of their enrollment in 2-year and 4-year colleges. Blue is 4-year college, green is a 2-year college. So you can see the percentage of ISA students who enrolled. In the middle, you can see the college persistence, how many ISA students are not only going to college, but are persisting into a 2nd year. And I know in many of our schools and districts, we have young people who go to college, and then you see them in January, and they're done for many reasons. Our kids are staying, and they're persisting. And then most importantly, what's the success rate of students who are in ISA schools, and to what extent is the academic preparedness and that sense of belongingness contributing to the data that we're seeing here? We're constantly thinking about these questions and constantly learning from our schools on how to refine our model and to think more deeply about supporting urban youth. So our goal is not simply to help students and schools get a little bit better and make them less worse. Our goal is actually to make these great schools, schools of choice for people who live in the proximity and schools of choice for people who are thinking about where do we want to move so that our young people, my kids, can go to high school. We want those to be ISA schools. So with that, I'm excited to help us transition into the next part of our agenda. I'm going to ask our presenter to start walking this way, and I will pull up her PowerPoint. I thank you so much for being here today, and I hope that throughout the day we will continue this conversation, and there'll be lots of interactive activities after the morning session.